Hello.
Hello there. Is that DJ Spen?
Yes, it is.
Hi, how are you? It's DJ Gloss here from London in the UK, Sound Fusion Radio.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing
nice
very
to meet you.
And you too, doing very well. So whereabouts are you in the world at the moment?
I'm home now. I'm literally packing for Australia, so you're going to hear a lot of stuff in the background. Just me moving around.
Oh, that's great. So you're off to Australia today? Or?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
and
wow.
Actually, in a couple of hours, I'll be leaving the house. So
fabulous, because you play there quite regularly, don't you?
I have my fair share, I would say. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Pretty good stuff.
Sounds absolutely great. Do you mind if I ask you some questions going back in time? Is that okay?
No, it's absolutely fine.
Okay. Well, it says in your bio about you starting out around about the age of 13, producing mix shows and so on, but it doesn't sort of say anything about how you got to that stage, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I understand. Well, I mean, the only way I can tell you is like this. My mom was kind of real heavy on me about doing schoolwork and stuff. And what was happening is that I was listening to this AM radio station here that James Brown used to own called WEBB. And what they did, it was one of those kind of AM stations that sort of went off at a certain point of the day. It wasn't a 24-hour thing. So it kind of like when the sun went down, the station went off.
Yeah.
But they were, as far as Baltimore was concerned, probably one of the pioneering stations that was, playing hip hop and, that sort of thing, in the early 80s. And what happened was that there was this group out of New York called the AP Crew that kind of moved down here, and they sort of brought that sort of New York flavor that they had with them, and they were doing what they were called like these super mixes.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing was, every day I came home from school, I would sit down and I would listen to this stuff, until I couldn't listen to it anymore. And one day I figured, I was like, these guys are not really doing anything special. They're doing the same thing that I was doing with my brother's records when I had this boom box and, just taking a pause button kind of tape deck and putting stuff together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, it wasn't that innovative, at least to me. So what I was doing was I was listening to what they were doing and kind of copying it and doing my own thing. One day, because I guess I was getting these decent grades with my mom, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, you need to take me to this radio station so I can take this mix that I put together. So, I put together this mix. She said, okay, I'll take you. She took me. The guy, saw me. I gave him my cassette tape. I went to school the next morning, came home the next day, and when I turned on the radio, and I mean as soon as I turned on the radio, my mix was playing.
Wow. You must have been so pleased.
I was kind of blown away because, literally, it was a very primitive kind of a setup that I had. I didn't have anything really. And, just the fact that it was on, so I called a guy, his name was Randy Dennis, and he ended up being our manager at the time. So I called him and I said, hey, I see you played my mix. He's like, yeah, man, it was all right. It was cool. Got a little bit of work to do, but what's your DJ name and what's the name of your crew? I had no idea, So I said, okay, I'm DJ Spen, and I was looking at my mix and I said, my crew is called the New Marks.
That's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
So that's kind of how that started. Really interesting story.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. Because, of course, unless I'd asked you the question, I would never know. Because, I know that was the start of the New Marks there. But, I can see that written on the side of your mixer.
Yeah, it was. I had no choice. He kind of called me out. And I was just like, I have no idea.
Talk about put you on the spot.
Yeah, so talk about on the spot thinking.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Crazy.
And that and the New Marks kind of led you to the writing of "Girl, You Know It's True," which of course was a massive hit for Milli Vanilli. How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, it was. I think we had been doing the New Marks maybe for about 4 or 5 years at that point. And one of the guys, Kevin Lyles, who's like doing massive stuff in the entertainment industries, like managing Trey Songz and this kind of stuff. He was kind of the lyricist. And, I was doing basically, just putting together rhythm tracks and stuff. And, we ended up coming up with this song called Girl, You Know It's True, on this little teeny label in Washington, D.C. that was sort of a regional hit.
Yeah. Wow.
Then, the guys at Cool Tempo ended up calling the record label, and the record label says, well, we don't want to sell it for cheap, because what they were going to give us for it was minimal. And we were like, take it. So the record label didn't do it. And next thing you know, these guys, jumping around singing the song, were singing the song.
Wow.
I mean, we kind of didn't even know. I believe the record label knew, but they didn't tell us.
Well,
So
there you go.
that's how that worked out.
And penned by yourself, and it was a massive hit right away. Well, literally across the world, really, for Milli Vanilli, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was I think their biggest record.
It was monster here in the UK.
13, Yeah, I think it did about 13 million copies or something like that worldwide. It's crazy.
Wow, 13 million copies. It feels incomprehensible, doesn't it? But
especially by nowadays standards.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was just such a mega hit. I remember playing it here. I mean, you didn't turn up to a gig without it, that's for sure. And
Right.
you definitely needed it with you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you went for the basically a radio show which was long running and even running now, which was the Flashback Saturday Night Dance Party.
Yeah, you do your research.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I was I don't even think I was finished. I was in college and I was doing an internship at the time at a radio station. And it was kind of like, I was doing sort of the graveyard shift. Nobody knew that I could DJ, because I was just I was actually at the point trying to downplay it because I was really going to school for an English major / mass communications. So the mass communications part sat me into the radio station.
Yeah.
And, once I was in the radio station, now all of a sudden, oh, well, we hear that you DJ and do this, that, and the other thing. And they wanted to start this kind of a party. And it started out as a party, which they did on a Saturday night. Yeah. And next thing you knew, the guy was like, well, look, why don't you, if you don't mind, and I know you're still doing the graveyard shift stuff, but let's do this thing Saturday night, 7 to 12 too.
Sounds great.
Okay. So, I ended up pulling out a bunch of records that I thought that I would never really, play again, So a lot of stuff from the 70s and whatnot. And I think what that did was help me cut my teeth on how to, getting to know a lot of these records that I play now, the Bohannons, the Set It Offs, the Flashlights, and, these kind of records. Because, I was kind of confined to having to play that. I really couldn't play anything there. Yeah. So,
wow.
That's kind of how that goes. And my friend KW Griff is still doing that now. And, it's still going on.
Yeah, even today. Even today.
Yeah,
that's
still going.
So that's a very long running radio show, really, isn't it? That's a considerable number of years.
And I believe it's still. At the time we had built it to a point where it had become it was the number one radio show in Baltimore on a Saturday night. It was it.
Wow.
And we were beating out talk radio and all kind of crazy stuff. It was amazing.
Well, that takes some doing, and that's a real nice place to be to have the number one Saturday night show of any large city. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
just loving it.
It was good.
Fabulous.
Very good.
So from there you went on to really with the Basement Boy Records and Jasper Street Company, and I'd love to know a little more about all of that.
Right around the same time, with this whole thing with college or university or whatever, I ended up doing some songwriting. for the Basement Boys. So, I was doing a record store thing during the day, doing Basement Boys stuff in the evening, and then going to work at the radio station from 12 to midnight or whatever.
Wow.
I mean, from midnight to 6 in the morning.
When did you sleep?
And man, whenever I could, it was crazy.
Sounds
it was crazy.
Yeah.
So what would happen was I ended up writing some things for Alternate that they ended up liking, on her first album, and a couple of things for Crystal Waters, which sort of led me from doing that into what I was naturally doing, as a DJ, kind of like. So it led me into like the whole production aspect of things. And then I guess maybe after 3 years of doing that, and I mean really intensively doing that, I did a lot of stuff, led me to doing the first production that I ever did, which was A Feeling. And because Basement Boys had just started their record label, and I think A Feeling was the second record that they did. And I did A Feeling based on this concept that I had from a lot of the singers that we were working with at the time, and kind of put it together. And I just, we called it Jasper Street Company because that's where the studio was, on Jasper Street. And it was about 10 or so singers all doing these lead parts, and it turned into what it turned into. I mean, loosely kind of based on what Masters at Work had done with the Voices in My Mind kind of record.
Yes, yeah.
But then we just took that and sort of expanded on it from there.
Yeah, wow. It produced a whole string of hits for you. Just looking down your discography, I mean, it's like an encyclopedia volume, your discography. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I got a lot of your records, but I'm seeing things on the list there that I need to add. So I'll be adding those. Yeah. I do a house show on a Thursday night on Sound Fusion. I'm the breakfast show DJ during the day, but I have a specialist house show on a Thursday night called New Groovin', which is very well received here in London and across the world. And we play a lot of your stuff. So, very, very, very happy to have your music to add to our repertoire, shall we say.
Well, buddy, I greatly appreciate it.
It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So, you've worked with so many artists, produced for sort of Diana Ross and Ann Nesby, Sean Escoffrey. I mean, that must have been amazing for you. Tell us more about those.
Just being around Basement Boys, after they had hits like Gypsy Woman and Mass Order, Lift Every
Crystal
Voice,
Waters, and
the Alternate records. It was quite easy at that point. Just I just wanted to just kind of hang around. So you would have all kinds of people, man, coming through those doors to go and work with them. In Baltimore being a small town, for me, it was just kind of an amazing experience just to even be, most of the songs I never really touched. It was just kind of being around, watching how the engineers worked on it, watching how Teddy and, Teddy Douglas and Tommy Davis, watching what they were doing, and sort of just picking up on things. So, being able to meet the likes of some of these people, the Ann Nesbys and...
yeah, wow.
I mean...
Sounds of Blackness, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was just amazing just, watching people work, Nona Hendrix. And, I mean, it's really just mind-boggling the amount of people, that we've had a chance to work with and remix music for, and just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I would imagine it's one of those situations that when you're in it, you're just in it and getting on with it. It's when you look back at it that you see the awesomeness of it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It's
just speechless half the time. When you're sitting there and somebody like Nona Hendrix, sat there and just kind of came up with what she was doing, went in, laid it down, came back, wrote some more, go back in, lay it down. It was crazy.
I can imagine. Wow.
It was crazy just, watching the work ethic of, different people. and what they do.
So
it was
much
pretty
talent and
amazing
creativity.
stuff.
You know, just to be around that and be part of that, that would be absolutely wonderful. I'm thinking that you know, that was great grounding for you, and you know, you still had so much more to go. You know, it was great, and you know, things like you know, partnering with Gary Dean and working with Code Red and that kind of thing. I mean,
yeah.
Perhaps you could.
All of that bass and boy stuff was preparation for that.
Yeah. So could I ask you to tell us a little bit more about how the Code Red stuff came about, partnering with Gary Dean? What sort of led you into that?
There was a point where the Basin Boys and myself basically had some creative differences, and not even creative differences. It was just growth. It was just, you know, some things. I had been there for about 12 years, and it was probably time to do something different. You know, I think God was sort of preparing me to move on and do some different things.
Yeah.
And when I was kind of in the middle of like really like not having anything, because Basin Boys, you know, Basin Boys owned what Basin Boys owned.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that point, I didn't really have anything, you know, of my own, you know, studio wise and whatnot, because, you know, Basin Boys had always facilitated that stuff for me. This guy, Gary Dean, who actually I'd been working with in a record pool for years, and years, had been, you know, operating a studio, and he just needed somebody to come in and to kind of help him with, you know, the production aspect of it. I said, okay, well, let's see how this works. So I went in and we started working, and the rest is history. It was that easy. It was crazy.
Wow.
Because it's not what I expected, you know, to happen, but it's what happened. And we ended up creating quite a few hit records. We ended up getting picked up by Defected for a few years.
Yeah.
You know, we ended up working with Mark Evans, and, you know, more work with Ann Nesby, Barbara Tucker, Sybil.
Wow. Names.
I mean, it was really, really, really a good experience. You know, working with Lisa Millett. I mean, she is phenomenal. You know, we had Jocelyn Brown in the studio. We had Jocelyn Brown's aunt in the studio.
Yeah.
Who was singing with Ecstasy, Passion, and Pain back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Wonderful.
Crazy
what an
stuff.
amazing A-list. I mean, there. You know, just those vocalists that you named there. I mean, absolutely fabulous. You know, and the delightful Jocelyn Brown. I've interviewed Jocelyn before, and
she's quite a lady. Let me tell you.
I've only ever spoken to her over the telephone, but she's quite a lady over the telephone. So I can imagine in person, she's quite a character.
She is definitely a character. A great way to put it.
Wonderful.
An amazing vocalist. You know, just an amazing vocalist. You know, still to this day, it's not too many vocalists who can go on stage, sit in a chair, and perform their whole catalog and still manage to rock it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've seen her do that with Incognito before, to come out on stage and, you know, to grab a chair and absolutely just wow the audience completely. You know. Yeah. That's the lady.
It's pretty amazing stuff that she's able to do.
Wonderful. So, would you say that Motherfunkers was kind of a natural progression from what you were doing? Did that sort of come together like that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, we formed Motherfunkers. Actually, we kind of formed it at Basement Boys. And we had come up with the first song that we did, which was The Best I Can, at Basement Boys before we kind of went over to Code Red. And that was kind of the beginning of it. I mean, Motherfunkers was really kind of a house band sort of a thing. You know, I mean, if you could think of like Parliament Funkadelic, and how big that organization was, it's kind of what we were doing with Motherfunkers. And, you know, we did pretty well with it. for a good long while. But I think, in essence, what was happening there was that it was such a big entity. I mean, when we wanted to go perform, we wanted 13, 14 people on stage.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to travel with that many, individuals. And, it just slowly kind of broke itself down from there, but just because of, we couldn't facilitate what it was. It was kind of difficult to do. But we had a good string of records, a good string of productions. Very, very amazing, an amazing amount of work we were doing.
Well, I did a special show on the Motherfunkers of 2 hours back to back in the mix with Motherfunkers Records. I then out of that produced a whole week's worth of short mixes, which went out every morning on the breakfast show as well. So we really did, if the word rinse comes to mind, really did go for it with the Motherfunkers. And yeah, it was a great set of shows and mixes. We absolutely loved it. It went down well here in the UK. So yeah, very, very popular on the house scene. So I mean, what are you sort of working on now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I have Quantized Recordings, which is doing pretty well. Which it also has a younger brother, so to speak, which is called Unquantized. And Quantized is kind of like the classic thing that I've sort of been working on with people from the Motherfunkers, etc. Since Basement Boys. So Gary Hudgens is with me. Yeah. Tommy Davis is with me. We have Sheila Ford doing a lot of stuff. People like Jose Clowney, who've been, working with us since Basement Boys as well. So it's a pretty big kind of an organization, a lot of people involved. Like most people think that it's all just me, and it's not. It'd be impossible to do it. It's just me. So working on the record labels, and I just dropped an LP called Transition, which I think it just landed iTunes last week. I believe it's number 1 on the Track Source album chart, so it's doing pretty good. And it has pretty much the same sort of a situation, with a lot of new additions. Working with a guy named Swamp Dog, Anthony Clark. Doing a lot of harmonica work. My son is on it playing guitar. We did like a Santana-ish type of vibe. Oh wow! With the song Transition, my daughter's on it. My wife is on it. So it's kind of a family affair, that album.
It sounds absolutely brilliant. We must get right behind it and get involved. You've currently got a track with us that's track of the week at the moment, which is the one with Natasha Watts, which we're very much enjoying here in the UK at the moment, and pushing that one for you. And so that's currently sitting with us as track of the week. I know is the name of the track. Obviously, you'd know it.
Yes.
Yeah, because you created it. So,
yes, and Natasha is really, really good on that record. I mean, she came over and recorded it here with us, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was just one of those sessions that ended up being what it was supposed to be and how it was supposed to be. We came up with a very, very, very good song.
Well, with yourself on there, and Natasha's very close to our heart here on Sound Fusion Radio, so the two of you together, it was a no-brainer for track of the week, that was for sure. So so we're really loving that one, and getting involved and behind it, and we will certainly get involved with the album as well, because that's right up our street, I think is the way to put it. So
all right.
Yeah, sounds absolutely brilliant. Dying to ask you, what were your favourite tunes when you were in your teens? What were your favourite bands?
Oh my gosh, in my teens, probably a lot of hip hop oriented stuff. Definitely like Boogie Down Productions with KRS-One. Of course, a lot of Run DMC. But, especially back then, I mean, had to like Michael Jackson, had to like Madonna. new shoes,
Yeah.
your rhythmics, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's kind of a wide sort of array of stuff. Because back then you just couldn't be a one-sided DJ. I had to play everything.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
a
little bit of everything.
That's absolutely right. And nice to hear those different names in there. There's there's a few names in there that I didn't expect, but no, that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Love it.
Because from the disco era, you asked me what were my favorite songs as a boy growing up. That's a whole nother thing. And you start to hear the first choice, them MSFBs, Quincy Jones, all of that.
Yeah.
But as a teenager, that stuff turned over fast.
It certainly did. But nice to hear the MFSBs in there and the Quincy Joneses, and that's obviously important as well from the point of view of some of the samples that go into some of the tunes later on. So it's all a great natural progression. That's for sure. I wanted to ask you if there was anything that you wanted to say to your fans here in the UK and worldwide that I hadn't asked you. If there was anything you wanted to tell them about, or any future events you wanted to bring to their attention.
Not necessarily, I guess, an event, but more so, the only thing that I want to say is this. As an entertainer, it is kind of unpopular to give God credit for being successful these days. But the bottom line really is that if you follow your heart and you concentrate on your personal relationship with God, your God-given ability will shine. And if you, and I mean, it's almost like a guarantee, because I'll be honest with you, I shouldn't be doing this probably as old as I am and all of that other kind of stuff. But at the very end of the day, I have literally placed my trust in God and allowed the Lord Jesus Christ to guide me into what I'm doing. It's not really about me trying to be number one. It's stuff just kind of happens. So all you really have to do is follow your heart, and everything that your wildest dreams will be imagined. It's crazy. It is crazy. But that's the main thing that I really want to say.
Wow. DJ Spen, I mean, that just works for me. What you said there is worth so much to people that are up and coming in this industry, and good sound advisor.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time, man. I really do.
That's wonderful. And on Twitter and Facebook and places like that, can we find you there?
Yes, you can. I am on Facebook. I'm on SoundCloud in quite a few different ways. I'm also doing this kind of new thing that I'm going to try to really work on with my son and some other young guys by the name of SP3N, which is, Spen with the E backwards, where I'm going to kind of be going into a little bit more of a deeper kind of a sound next year. I've done some releases under it, but I'm really going to try and concentrate on some of that stuff this year and see where it goes.
We've played some of those releases actually on New Groovin' that you've done under that name.
Oh, nice.
And nice. That's wonderful. Loving some of the it's quite uplifting, spiritually uplifting sort of stuff that you're doing there, isn't it?
Yeah. Still trying to keep the spiritual thing as the main undertone, but really trying to expand what I'm doing. To try and stay relevant, and let's see where it goes.
That's absolutely brilliant. I've taken up loads of your time, and I know you need to be running for the airport soon, and I just want to say a massive thank you from us here at Sound Fusion Radio.
No problem. Thank you guys for the support. I really do appreciate that.
Well, it's a pleasure. And we'll get right behind that album, and we'll be tweeting away. You'll see us playing your tunes. And, of course, Natasha Watts for the rest of the week with you. That's brilliant. So have a really safe journey, and we'll speak to you hopefully in the not too distant future.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, man.
Thank you. You take care too.
All right.
Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.